sale price of said property shall not exceed 100% of the appraised value. And we're striking all of D and all of E, and inserting a new D, which reads, the minimum sale price of tax foreclosure property shall be its current assessed value. Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, I think trying to address some of Mr. Vino's concerns. The person that needs this piece of land, although the opening bid is going to be at 100% if this passes of the assessed value. We are striking out taxes owed at the time of foreclosure, which is right now currently that the new owner would have to pay off. Correct? $350 in administrative charges, filing fees, and documentary stamps. So there were some costs that were associated with, when you set a price, and that those are already being taken on to lower the price. And I have not sat on the board with one of these issues in front of us. Is it safe to assume that the assessed value of a piece of land that's non-buildable isn't very high? I mean, what's the value of the land if you can't do anything with it?
If I may.
Sure.
Town-owned land, these are actual sales for FY 2001. I'm not going to read the map in parcel. I have it available.
No, that's fine.
If you'd like it. I'll read the lot size, the assessed value, 40% of the assessed value, which was the board's old policy.
Right.
And then I'll read the actual price of the lot. 65,340 square feet, assessed value $20,000. 40% of the assessed value would be $8,000. The actual selling price, $5,000. 95,832 square feet. The assessed value was $21,400. 40% of the assessed value would be $8,560. The actual selling price was $5,000. 18,000 square feet. Assessed value $15,900. 40% would be $6,360. The actual price $5,000. So 65,000 square foot lot sold for $5,000. A 95,000 square foot lot sold for $5,000. 18,000 square foot sold for $5,000. 24,000 square feet. Assessed value $13,200. 40% of the assessed value $5,280. The actual price $4,000. 1,000 square feet. Assessed value $2,400. 40% of the assessed value $960. The actual price $1,000. 8,100 square feet. Assessed value $35,200. 40% of the assessed value $14,080. The actual selling price $3,400. 4,250 square feet. Assessed value $12,100. 40% $4,840. Actual price $2,000. 24,950 square feet. Assessed value $16,600. 40% $6,640. Actual price $5,000. And 3,200 square feet. Assessed value $8,100. 40% would be $3,240. The actual price $2,000. So as you can see, there is a great disparity in the fairness. And as I mentioned when we first put this on the agenda, that I attended the auction because and these actual prices were the minimum starting bids as set forth by the board. I can tell you that on the last several sales, I voted no because we were not following the existing policy, and again, 65,000 square feet was $5,000, 18,000 square feet was $5,000. So that there was no rhyme or reason. I think that in the interest of, and I understand Mr. Vino's concern, although that issue hasn't arisen except for the Swan Pond issue, which was a separate issue, which was an issue that went before town meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was a whole different set of circumstances. To my knowledge, I've not seen the particular instance we're talking about where it's a Title V issue, and I would assume that if you're living in a house, if you have a lot in a house and you live in it, you need to replace the septic system, that you can't be forced to buy more land in order to conform. That there's something that you can, I'm not an expert in the subject matter, but I'm just going to presume that there's something that you can do to create compliance. You know, I don't believe that the requirements of Title V say if thou does not have enough land, thou shalt get more, because they don't make more. So you can't, so I'm not going to, I guess I'd prefer to move forward with this tonight. You know, if the board is uncomfortable with 100% of assessed value, you know, then we can talk about that. But I think that, again, in attending that auction, for the last one that we did, you know, some of the residents could not understand, and I could not explain why they got that many thousands of square feet less. They paid more, and it just, there's no rhyme or reason, and it shouldn't be subject to the vagaries of the board or the evening or the hour or whatever the case may be. So I think we should move forward with the reading of the policy. If it's found that creates an issue, then whatever that issue is can be brought forth, and there can be but I think we should address this so that we can allow any sales of town-owned land to go forward. So that's my pitch. Yeah.
My recommendation then is, well, I am going to vote in favor of moving this forward. I would also suggest, and I discussed this with Mr. Vino, of possibly something at town meeting where an amendment to this section of the law, the reduction or increase in lot size, to amend it to somehow, if there were a Title V situation in the future, do it that way, by just changing this law, and where the homeowner would have to prove that this is the only way they could come in compliance. Other than that, I agree. I think we need to move this forward. I'm going to vote in favor of this.
Mr. Younger, could you send something off to either CPC and or ZBA regarding, I think you're well versed in the concern here, and rather than tell them what to do, let's tell them what our concern is.
Right.
And
that's fine. I'm just saying maybe there's a way we can.
And if they see fit to address it,
right,
and they'd know better whether or not the issue has arisen in the past.
Right. As you said, you haven't seen the issue. Mr. Vino, I think, has a concern about it because he has seen it. So maybe we could try to take care of both things.
So if we could
still move this
if
along.
you could send a memo off to the CPC and the ZBA regarding this issue, and be happy to take a look at that before you send it off, and then let's get a copy to the board. Go from there on that. Mrs. Bailey.
Just a question, could you get that list that you just read? The 65,000 square foot lot, what was the assessed value that you?
$20,000.
And is that do you have whether that's a conforming lot on that list?
Can you tell it on my folder? I think.
Well, if you don't have it handy, but I guess just to Mr. Callagy's point, that a lot of those assessed valuations sounded low,
Right.
very low to me to be
That's correct.
a conforming lot. So
Right.
if it is not a conforming lot, the odds are that the assessed valuation is low enough that you're not taking advantage
Right.
of the purchaser.
Right.
So I guess it's not that important, but it sounded to me from you reading those prices that, you know, Mr. Callagy's hypothesis is probably accurate, and you're not taking.
Yeah, I think, even though some of those lots were large, I don't think they weren't built.
Right, and you can tell that from really the price.
No. Although the value when combined with whatever lot is being combined with,
Mhm.
Yeah,
changes the, changes
Right,
the
right,
mix.
right, and the purchaser is, in theory, getting it back when they sell
Right.
their home. Yeah, I think if we can find a way to address Mr. Vino's concerns, we should, but I don't have a problem with Mr. Vino, no, I would support it.
Mr. Mother? Mr. Vino?
Yes, if I may, thank you. As you know, Mr. Chair, I will be voting in opposition to this. I've learned one thing, living in this town for 40-plus years, never say never. The situation could come up, it has come up once that I recall, the person did need this, it could happen tomorrow. I'm not going to try to answer for the prior boards, but I do remember in discussion over selling town-owned land that some of the feeling was to give the resident a break and get the land back on the tax rolls. I do agree that small taxes are being paid, but I honestly feel we're not going to sell any land if we do this, because nobody will buy it, in my own opinion. So it just will not go back on the tax rolls. But my biggest issue is a Title V issue. So I will be voting against this proposal because I believe it ties our hands where we have to sell that land at that assessed value.
Mr. Mulder? Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the first reading of the amended policy 7.2.2, provisions applicable to the sale of tax foreclosure property. Second. Second. Just further discussion? Just a comment that if Mr. Vino's correct and it doesn't result in any sales of town-owned land, then obviously the board would want to readdress the policy. I just think that, I think it's a good starting point. I think if you look at what's gone on in the past in the interest of the entire community, we should not be giving away land at bargain prices. So that's, they need to correct that down the road.
Yeah.
Time will tell. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Ms. Verizon, planning to attend this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, they are under the understanding because they are physically, the plan is different than what they submitted to the abutters, because the pole is in a totally different location. That they, hearing will be postponed, and they are resubmitting notices to all the abutters.
We need a motion to, we need to open it. We have a motion.
Actually, I don't know technically if you need a motion, because it will be a totally new hearing, you're not continuing the hearing.
So it's going to be
Totally new
published
notice.
again?
Yep.
On the notification? Okay.
Yes.
So we're not going to go back to it?
No.
Keep skipping by it.
Just in case there was people coming here who were abutters who
Okay.
weren't aware of that.
Move to item 7 on the agenda, which is a discussion of the general government audit. This is a follow-up to discussion the board had. I guess, let me start with this. This is not the same as comparative analysis or peer analysis or benchmark, whichever term we want to use. This is a different issue. This is Mr. Callaghan's comment, I think, regarding that full financial review. I guess 2 items that I have to add to that. One is that I spoke with the state at the end of last week, as the board knows, from a session that Selectman Bailey and I attended.